People who watched TV right away trusted Ken Curtis. He was unforgettable as Festus Hagen on the long-running Western show Gunsmoke because of his scruffy beard, crooked grin, and biting sense of humor. He played the loyal deputy who always stood by the men on television. But Curtis had memories, disappointments, and a few grudges that lingered with him for the rest of his life when the cameras weren't on. There was a man behind the humor and friendliness who had been through a lot of terrible times, was proud, and had a strong sense of fairness. His story started in a strange spot for a potential Hollywood star, above a jail. Curtis Wayne Gates was born on July 2, 1916, in Lamar, Colorado. His dad was the sheriff of Bend County, therefore the family resided in a modest apartment right over the jail. Most kids heard bedtime stories about cowboys and outlaws, but Curtis's childhood was different. The outlaws in Curtis were actual guys held up in cells downstairs. Every day, you could hear iron doors closing and convicts talking late at night. His mom was the jail's cook, and she made meals for both the family and the prisoners. Curtis, who was little, often saw her hand out trays of food through the bars. Those times when he was alone made a big influence on him. He learned that even men who had done awful things might still be treated with respect. That early lesson in kindness would stick with him for the rest of his life. It wasn't easy to grow up during the Great Depression. There wasn't much money and not many chances. But Curtis found something that made him happy: music. He sung in church choruses, in school functions, and at community events. People soon noticed his deep, pleasant voice. Even still, it didn't seem possible to have a career in entertainment during those tough times. He wanted a more solid future, so he signed up for Colorado College to study medicine. He attempted to convince himself for 2 years that becoming a doctor was the proper thing to do. But music was too big of a lure. He started playing at small events and learned that being on stage made him feel alive. In the end, he bravely chose to leave medical school and follow his dream of singing. That option made a big difference. In the early 1940s, Curtis joined the band of Tommy Dorsey, one of the most famous swing band leaders in the U.S. He had a lot of pressure on him because he took over the band right after Frank Sinatra left. It felt like it would be hard to fill Sinatra's shoes, yet Curtis did it with ease. Dorsey taught him how to be disciplined, professional, and how to get people's attention. He also changed his name to Ken Curtis around this time. It was a simple stage name that was easy for people to remember. He joined the famous Western music group Sons of the Pioneers, which helped his music career flourish even more. People all throughout the country knew his voice from songs like Ghost Riders in the Sky and Room Full of Roses. But Curtis was never happy with just one type of performance. Hollywood was doing well, and Western movies were becoming very popular. By the middle of the 1940s, he was starting to get tiny parts in Westerns. John Ford, a famous filmmaker who worked with stars like John Wayne and Henry Fonda, was one of the first people to notice him. Ford liked that Curtis was a real cowboy and added him to his group of entertainers. Curtis worked on a number of Ford movies, which gave him a lot of useful experience, even though the director's strict nature made filming hard. Curtis also went through a lot of changes in his personal life at this time. His first marriage to actress Lorraine Page ended quietly because the stress of show business drove them apart. After that, he married Barbara Ford, who was John Ford's daughter. The marriage seemed great on the outside, but it had its own problems. Being related to one of Hollywood's most powerful families wasn't always easy, and the couple divorced in 1964. Curtis took the part that would define his career the same year. When actor Dennis Weaver quit the program, the producers of the TV show Gunsmoke sought a new deputy. The show had been on the air for years at that point. Curtis was hired to play Festus Hagen in just one episode. People adored the persona right away. Festus was rough around the edges, but he was loyal, amusing, and very honest. People instantly liked him. What started off as a short-term job grew into more than 10 years of effort. Curtis was in more than 300 episodes of the show. Even nevertheless, life behind the scenes wasn't always easy. Marshal Matt Dillon, played by James Aries, was the major character in the show. Curtis sometimes thought that Festus was always in the shadow of the main character. Both guys acted professionally, although their relationship was never very tight. Curtis also sometimes disagreed with Milbourne Stone, who played Doc Adams and was a veteran actor. Most of these fights were small, like the ones that happen when people with strong personalities work together for a long time. Curtis, on the other hand, thought that every character should be more than just a name. He sometimes pushed for greater narratives or more speech. Another cause of stress was producer John Mantley, who was quite tight about costs and screenplays. Curtis asked Manty many times to give Festus more money and better parts, but Manty often said no. Their conflicts were a source of irritation for Curtis throughout his career. Even if there were these problems, fans never saw them. Festus Hagen was the heart of Gunsmoke to them. He was a faithful deputy whose humor complemented the show's gravity. Curtis stopped working on TV regularly after the show finished in 1975. The network made a reunion movie called Gunsmoke returned to Dodge years later. A lot of fans thought Festus would show up, but Curtis said no. He thought that the pay he was offered didn't reflect how much he had done for the first performance. Respect was more important to Curtis than money. Life got calmer after leaving Hollywood. In 1966, he married Tori Connolly, who was not in the entertainment business at all. He finally found the calm he had been looking for in his marriage. Curtis liked to fish, travel, and go to Western events where people still welcomed him. Ken Curtis died at the age of 74 on April 28, 1991. His ashes were spread out on the Colorado plains, where his life began. In the end, he was still the same person he had always been, someone who valued honesty, loyalty, and respect above all else. He will always be remembered by millions of people as Festus Hagen, the scruffy deputy with a large heart who helped make Gunsmoke one of the best westerns on TV.